that Francesco and Manuel.
Yeah.
Look, there's nothing solid that ever came out of that, ever. So I don't even know what his motivations were. I have absolutely no idea. You know, I don't even know whether Greg contacted him. No, I think he contacted Greg, actually. But the whole thing is, you know, you haven't even got him talking or anything, really. You've got all this bullshit about him, like, knighting Greg a Lord Chancellor and all. I mean, you do understand, don't you, that the way royal procession and stuff works.
Yeah.
Unless you're actually bound, you can't do any of that stuff. And this has always been accepted. So even if people think that person isn't the king, this person's the king, they don't go around knighting people, do they? I don't think, maybe there's instance of this. I don't think there is.
No.
Contesting the monarch is not a fucking rare thing. It's a very common thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Lots of people have done it over the recent years.
It's happening all the time. It's always happened. So it's not even something that's like new territory that nobody's gone into. The thing about him is there's not really any evidence in him, you know, in terms of recordings and him speaking or anything. It's just these bizarre pictures of this little boy sitting down with like women standing about him. He looks quite posh. Yeah, well, he might be an aristocrat or something. But it's like there's no evidence that those people are who Greg say they are. So it's just like, it's literally nothing. It's a bit like, look, if you said to me, and I'm a policeman, you said, look, I've got evidence about this thing and this thing and this thing. I'll give you a framework of it and I'm going to bring the evidence in. And you say, okay, no problem. Well, I'm listening. And then you bolt on the evidence. You know, like, I've got to go and get CCTV. I've got to go and do this. I've got to go and get some bank records. I've got to get some other people, see if they're willing to speak. That's the stage he's at. But he hasn't actually specified what he's going to give, apart from Royal Marks. And this Royal Marks is something he's just pulled out of his arse. So he hasn't got anything. He's not even at that point I'm describing. So the idea he's got some kind of, if you like, legitimate case is laughable on its face because there is no evidence.
So what interests me is obviously Greg is now claiming himself the rightful heir to the throne. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's just literally bullshit on top of bullshit. I mean, look, if the other thing didn't have a single shred of validity which has ever been presented, and I'm saying it's in a completely unbiased manner, yeah?
Yeah.
This is why I'm kind of apprehensive about putting virtue. I mean, I don't mind talking to you, that's fine. But yeah. And I don't mind you recording it, and I don't mind you publishing it. But the point is that they haven't got anything. You can't debunk something that doesn't exist. And the fact that he's already tried this bullshit in the past, it didn't work, and then he's saying, oh, actually, it's me instead now. Mm-hmm. Well, he's arguing against himself. So he never explains how he's managed to, it's like, you know, don't try and psychoanalyze a load of lies that you know are a load of lies. But yeah. And don't try to intellectualize such a matter. But at the same time, if you actually, hypothetically speaking, how could anyone possibly believe someone like that? They've already pushed something for years without a single shred of evidence.
You'd be surprised. Yeah.
No, without a shred of evidence.
I know.
Yeah, but you see, these people are just morons. It's like when people say we landed on the moon, and it's like, I could never really understand. That's a good example. When I was a little kid, I never could understand how you could land the moonlander on the moon. Not the moon. Yeah, the moonlander on the moon. Because it's got these little peg legs, these little things that, you know, like they look like the kind of legs you get on a high chair for a baby at the dinner table. Yeah. And they're saying that they lift off on space boosters. And I was thinking, fuck, I don't understand that. It wasn't I disbelieved it, but I couldn't say I ever believed it because it just didn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. It wasn't like I thought there was a big conspiracy going on. I just thought, well, how the fuck can that be true? Yeah. You know? So I'm missing something here. And of course, as you get older, you think, of course I'm missing something because it's just fucking stupid. It's impossible.
What I think will be helpful.
But this is a lot more stupid.
It is. No, what I think will be helpful, Tom, is to talk to you in a timeline of events kind of manner. He was in England in 2009, I believe. He came to visit some people. So this is before he met you, right? I can't
remember when I
think you met him in 2011, perhaps. Or 2013.
Yeah, probably. That would make more sense. Something like that. That would have been about the right time.
So he was in England, and then it looks like 2010, he started writing The Hidden King, and he was aware of Francisco Manuel at that point, and I believe that he'd been in contact with Francisco. So, and then did he visit?
That sounds right, yeah.
Then did he go and visit?
But he hadn't started writing The Hidden King yet, I don't think.
Okay.
He went on 2 protracted visits to go and see him.
Yeah.
That happened twice.
Right.
Right. One time just before I saw him.
Yeah.
For like 4 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And then one time about 2 years later, he went back over. And these were long visits where he was staying in a hotel near to what that place was called, something like the Cittadella de Villa or whatever it was called, which was the place, the quite nice tourist attraction-y place on the rocks, on the hills, you know, overlooking the sea.
Yeah.
But that he was staying in a hotel. After that, yeah, so he was staying with me. I was quite interested to a point in what he was saying, and I went to Parliament with him. It was Parliament. He went to sort of Downing Street, and he wanted to kind of put in some kind of letter,
right?
Alerted the Prime Minister to a notice of, like, you know, contestation of the monarchy or something.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't. They were being funny with him about taking it. He also then went to the post office to send a recorded delivery or special delivery version of the same thing. And I went with him on that day. I think he might have already tried this. Either way, I mean, at the time, I was just kind of playing along with this because I wasn't really interested in that. I mean, I was to a point, because it was at that time where I did genuinely think that there was a chance that there might be a movement to make certain things change in the country. And I thought, well, maybe he's onto something here. Now, that doesn't mean that I believed his story, but I kind of, you know, sometimes in life you'll go along with something. I mean, you're just literally going along for the ride. Have a little look just so you can see what happens.
I think that's what a lot of people are doing with this Greg story, to be honest. Go along for the ride to see what happens.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is that at that point it hadn't been disproven.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right. Now the problem is now we've got a situation where he's got himself in a situation where he's not ever got anywhere with that previous thing. He's never provided any of the evidence that you would have, you know, almost like in normal etiquette, if someone says something and they're in the process of proving it, that logical progression has never taken place.
Yes.
And now people saying, oh yeah, he's asking for money off people and saying he's a king. Well, I mean, that's just completely ridiculous. But yeah, so the steps in you know, chronological order would be, he at that time had been this Marcus Manuel was like an antiques dealer or something. Apparently, he had a brother in Portuguese intelligence, and he was Portuguese. That's where this place that Greg went to stay was, and that's where the guy comes from. But he didn't let Greg stay in his house. It all seemed a bit preposterous to me that you'd be sort of saying, "I'm the king and I've got a legitimate right," or I should be the king, and I've got the evidence to prove this. But you can go and stay in a hotel at €40 a pop per night, day after day after day after week after month after month after month, all at your own expense. I mean, are you the king? Like, well, put me up in your house then, or put me up in one of your properties on your land, because he had other properties. He didn't. It's like the guy can't even be bothered to extend what would be normal courtesy to Greg. So he obviously was just taking the piss. But I don't know what his motivation. I have no idea what his motivations were, because I don't really think, unless the guy's just even more delusional than Greg, how he actually thought this would get him anywhere. I mean, really? Where did he think it was going to get him? I mean, maybe he just thought he'd get some loonies buying some of his antiques or something. I don't know.
Interesting. So, do you know about Greg staying in a cave in Portugal?
Yeah. You see,
is that the second time or the first time?
No, that was the second time.
Okay, he's gone out to meet this Francisco. Francisco's obviously kind of not been very courteous, and Greg's then stayed 4 months at his own expense. And then
hang on a minute. We're jumping forward a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, look, courteous is all a matter of context. You've got to remember that Greg's like a sociopathic piss taker.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe he had been staying in his house for about 15 minutes and he thought, there's no way he's staying in my house.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So that could well have happened, you see.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to cast any aspersions against this Marcus Manoel.
No,
because
of course.
I mean, what you
Francisco.
Francesco, yeah. Because I can't, because I don't know him and he hasn't given us enough information to actually cast these. But the point is, if you just look at it in mathematical terms, if you're claiming to be the king, right, then you get someone to go round there. If you're the person who's going to go round there and help them verify it, if you're having to spend a load of cash out and you're not getting any actual evidence off the guy, well, mathematically speaking, what would you do? You just think, right, well, this is going nowhere, write the money off or whatever, and you wouldn't go back there. But instead, he came to London. He was writing. He does spend a lot of time doing his writing and stuff like that, Greg. Like he doesn't do nothing, but you start realising that. Sorry, I have to rewind a little bit. Yeah, so mathematically, it doesn't make any sense. Even the first time, why he would go there. Then he comes to England and he's saying, I can prove this, I can prove that, and I can prove the other. But of course, years later, he never did prove it. But when he came to stay with me, the only thing I was interested in, and literally, I was interested in he is an interesting guy. He's very entertaining, by the way, yeah?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he occasionally just goes off on these wild tangents, talking a load of shit, right? And it is just a load of shit. And then when he realises he's gone too far, he sort of acts all you just sort of like back off and leave him to sort of think, right, well, I don't know. I'm not going to push people into a situation that embarrasses them unless it's totally necessary. But the interesting thing for him, as far as he's concerned, was this reconstruction and deconstruction of the subconscious, because that's something I did sort of resonate with me. The idea that you can just literally get people to be in such a shit state mentally or spiritually or whatever word you want to use, that they start acting against themselves, and the idea that could kind of be, mechanically, like by some kind of machine or by some kind of process reversed, or you could literally, change your consciousness to start working in a more efficient manner. That did interest me, yeah. And I wanted, because I was interested in this,
yeah,
I was doing this. I mean, listen, as I said, I didn't regret having him come and stay, yeah. But the point is, he is a piss taker, yeah. Like, so you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, he is entertaining, he is good value, but then he starts taking the piss, and he gets to the point where no one is going to allow him to stay with them for a long time.
He's eating all your food, he's sleeping in all day.
Very much. No, he didn't do that all the time.
No.
But it was more the thing is he does stuff at night. Yeah, so yeah, he'd stay sleep all day. But the thing is, I mean, it wasn't like he doesn't really put you out.
Yeah.
But it's like you're just thinking, like, where's all this going? And then you start thinking, hang on a minute. So you haven't proved any of the stuff you're saying you're going to prove. Well, you spent hours and upon hours talking about various things. Then you sort of excuse yourself because you've got to do work. And then he's watching YouTube videos and stuff, which of course is necessary for research, I suppose. But the point is, it's almost like he's just spinning out a load of bullshit, holding things above you that he's withholding information on. And then he's just using this as an excuse to have a place to doss about the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like he's just made a living of doing this. And that's what it appears he's doing.
Yeah,
and he never came up with any of the information more than what. I mean, as I said, I think there isn't. I think when something resonates with you, generally speaking, that's because it's true. There is something to do with this.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions. I've got a couple of questions to stop you there, because we're speeding ahead, and I've got questions and I want to ask you, but you're already on to the next thing. So let's go back to the construction and deconstruction of the subconscious. Okay, because that interested me, and you said on your in your last video, you said, or your last video about him, you said that he claims he was trained in Germany in the psychology of altering consciousness, and I was wondering, you say about altering the way people perceive things and how they act. It sounds like brainwashing to me. Like if you're projecting that on someone else, if you're altering someone else's subconscious, is that not akin to brainwashing?
Yeah, it's a violation, isn't it? It's like a rape of their mind sort of thing, and that's not like, obviously it's a violation, it's a trespass upon the person, isn't it? But
yeah. So is that not what he's doing? Is that not what he's doing to these people? I mean, you know, for power of suggestion and...
Well, I think...
Yeah.
I don't know though, because you see, the thing is that I've got so bored of listening to his shit as he's gone further down the toilet bowl of nonsense that I could listen to something he says now on one of these ridiculous Jim Fetzer interviews or something, and my mind just like literally just wanders off and thinks about other things, and the next thing I'm sleeping. You know, it's like that. It's like,
yeah, it can be tough to get through these videos sometimes. I mean, it does waffle.
Anymore. It's just like my mind rejects it now. You can only take so much bullshit off one person, and then all of a sudden your mind just chooses.
Becomes white noise.
Like that door is,
yeah.
It's white noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not, I want to knuckle down and listen to it, because I already know it's not going to make any sense, because it can't make any sense, because he's given up making sense 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's been backpedaling since then, and now he's come so far away from what he used to do that it's again, your mind just rejects it. So, you know, it's not really a matter of choice. Well, it isn't a matter of choice. You know, he's well and truly trounced himself out of any contention a long time ago with anyone who's thinking in any way logically.
So,
but that doesn't mean he didn't have something at some stage, but he hasn't got it now.
Right, okay. So, Tom, how you met Greg was that you read some of his books, and you got in contact with him because you found his email in the back of the, which one was it? Hitler Was a British Spy book. And and you managed to get hold of him and to see if you could chat with him. And he said, oh, well, you know, I happen to be coming to England in a couple of weeks. And you had a spare room in London. And so you decided, well, no skin off my nose, I'll put him up, I'll get to talk to him, which was great.
Yeah, exactly.
And then obviously he ended up staying, overstaying his welcome almost, or staying for 4 months anyway. So why was he coming to England? Do you remember?
I think it was like to sort of on his mission from the king. That would be his story. But I know what it was. He just fancied coming to England. I think that's the truth.
He was in Portugal at the time, I'm guessing, still? Or was he back in New Zealand at this point?
No, I think he was in Portugal.
Yeah. So that's how you met him, and he stayed with you for a while. So when does your friend, your mutual friend even, or it wasn't a mutual friend necessarily, it was someone that you both knew, which is Christopher Crichton or John Ainsworth Davis? Is that the writer or the...
Yeah, his real name is John Ainsworth Davis, and his pen name is Christopher Crichton.
And he wrote the transcripts for the Mountbatten Report. Is that right?
Well, this is his story, but you've got to remember he's an intelligence agent, isn't he? So, whereas he might be talking a right load of shit, it's establishment shit. This will be what Lord Mountbatten wanted him to write.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not so interested. I mean, I know a little bit about the book. I'm not so interested in the content of the book because it doesn't really have anything directly to do with Greg, am I right? It's really that Greg just took that transcript and tried to write the book and claim it as his own.
No, he didn't. It's a bit worse than that because he wanted to put author Lord Chancellor.
Lord Chancellor, yes,
which doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, no.
Because, of course, the other thing is when somebody explained to me, which is actually very interesting, under the circumstances, if Greg knew anything about what he was talking about, when you address the Lord Chancellor, you call him the Lord High World Chancellor. Now, Greg loves highfalutin titles and bullshit, yeah?
Yeah.
So if he can't even be bothered to work that out, and armchair critics of him just knew this off the top of their head, then it shows how little research, once he's gone down this route, from his previously interesting, well-researched books, he's just gone completely so far away from any relevant research. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, not only has he gone into the museum and he's studying ancient Egypt and commenting on South American artifacts by accident, he's not even turned up at the museum. He's turned up at the main bus station and he's talking about ancient Egypt in terms of bus numbers and bendy buses. It's just so completely off the wall.
Out there, isn't it?
It's not yet. You see, the point is that he's missing. He's not like this leads to this, leads to this. That's all stuff people can kind of agree on. This is a bit more controversial, but I believe then it moves on to this. It's not like that. It's like, it's just, he doesn't even know the basics of it. You see, And like he, I mean, when he left England, maybe it's the first time or the second time. You know, it's the second time. He'd said things, he'd repeated things that I'd said to him, changed them, and then when I said, well, that's rubbish, why are you saying that? That made you look stupid. He said, no, you told me.
Oh, right.
And at the time I was saying in Romania, he was saying, Tom Cahill is London and Romania's #1 counterintelligence weasel.
Right,
You
okay.
just start thinking, fuck off, you idiot.
Yeah, I've heard
Don't eat everybody. As you're staying in now, don't eat all the hummus, you bastard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've heard he's I think you told me actually before in a previous conversation, he's very paranoid about everyone being an agent.
No, he's not paranoid at all. He just knows that the kind of fuckwits who are likely to give him money will go and like ejaculate in their pants as soon as they hear that.
Yeah.
And give him money.
So he says it for a reaction rather than he's actually.
Well, what about that guy called George Lees and the other one, Professor George Lees and the other one? And I did a video about him called George Lees and what the other guy's name is, Educationally Subnormal Fraud Experts. And they were talking about how he'd been killed. And I said, yeah, Greg, they saying he'd been killed. And he said, no, I just had to block them because they're a load of fucktards. Yeah? And this is the type of thing. But these people, I think they are delusional freaks. I don't think they're working for the government. I just think they're just caring the communities.
So we're talking about the John Ainsworth Davis. And so you knew, how did you know him beforehand, before Greg? Or you didn't know him?
No, what it was, someone called Mike Sparks in America had taken an interest in this guy. And Greg knew Mike Sparks. I knew Mike Sparks. Mike Sparks had been talking to some woman who Greg had also been talking to, called Lawrence DeMello. Now, Lawrence is a man's name, but so she got hold of the transcript of this book, and as a result of this, she tried to get Greg to continue writing it. But I don't know. And these people, you've got to remember, a lot of them are bullshitters and fantasists. So she's saying that. Basically, anyway, she spoke to Mike Sparks, and Mike Sparks has said, well, Tom's in England, and Tom lives nearby, so he can go round there and speak to him. So I went round there about 2 or 3 times, and the second time I broke it. I can't remember exactly what the first time was. I just said, I think somebody's writing that book, you know?
Yeah.
And then the second time I was saying, would you like to meet the person? He's saying, yeah. And he was saying, well, first of all, I wanted to call the police because he's just stolen the transcript. Doesn't matter how he's got it. He knows full well he's not allowed to write it. And then when I said, well, have a look at this, and he had a little bit of a look at it. And he said, well, actually, he's done quite a good job. So he said, I feel a little bit childish from my previous concept because, you know, like he's done it. What's the point of worrying about it? So anyway, so he thought it was quite good. And I was still in two minds about... because the thing with Greg is he can be a pain in the arse, you know, and he's got no concept of like, he basically will play people however he wants to play them. And he as much as he can. So when he was around me, he clearly knew that he couldn't really play me. The only way he could play you is by, I suppose, I wouldn't even really say he did this so much. He would kind of hold off talking complete load of shit to me because he knew that it would never ever work. He'd obviously work that, you know, this obviously, it's a bit like, you know, you come across some people and you hear some of the shit they've said to some other people and then you realise, well, they never said anything like that to me.
Mm-hmm,
and it's because they're catering what the shit they come out with depending on their audience, you know. They say whatever they can get away with it. He definitely falls into that category massively. But of course with these people, they often come unstuck when you're there, when they're talking to someone else and they kind of forget that they're talking shit to somebody and you're then going to hear it and you're going to be like, no, this guy's just a bullshitter, he's just talking a load of shit. So eventually that's normally how they come on. You might hear them on a phone call conversation, or you might be in a bar next to them and then you hear them talking to someone else and then you hear, you know, you kind of catch bits of it and you think, oh, right, well, that's not what you said to me. You just add in a load of more stupid stuff because you think this person's less discerning. So I was apprehensive about him going round there because I thought these two, like there's a couple, you know, there's him and his wife. The guy's old, he's frail, well, he's dead now, you know, he died shortly afterwards. And I was like, does he really need Greg going around there? Because Greg had this idea, well, I'm going to publish the book anyway so he can fuck himself. You know, that was his kind of attitude. And so I was thinking, is it is it better to just not do it? But the guy said, no, don't worry, get him round. So he went round there, and the guy actually received. He said, yeah, he's a bit odd, but whatever. But then after that point, so it wasn't really a big problem. He was acting up a bit, but then he always acts up. So he didn't really do anything to upset the guy. But yeah, but then after that, I know that I can't really remember exactly what it was, but Greg was then, I think, partly put up to it by that Lawrence de Mello. It was this kind of, they basically wanted money, and Lawrence de Mello wanted money. And Lawrence de Mello doesn't seem to there's any need for her to do anything for her to get money. She's one of these rich people who just thinks she should get money just because, you know. So she got very annoyed because I said, just in passing to her, I said, I can't really remember when. Well, because of the fact that I'd greased the skids for him to speak to Greg, and that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for me. This John Ainsworth Davis said, well, if we make any money out of this, don't worry, you'll get something. And I said, well, you know, don't worry about that now. We'll talk about that like at some later stage. But it's a pleasure. I've got nothing, you know, I'll help you, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just something I've been happened to be around, and it's happened. But that de Mello, she went completely mental then.
Right.
She wouldn't talk to me, started calling me. Basically, she was talking to me like I was some kind of scumbag who was trying to steal her money. Not that any money had been made.
Not that it was not. She was necessarily entitled to any either, because she didn't write the book, right?
Well, she didn't do anything. She just happened to be in possession of something, but we don't know how she got possession of it. I mean, I'm sure she might have even said, but the thing with her, she talks so much shit that you just kind of like erase all of what she said at the end of the sentence without actually even remembering what. You know, some people, it's like it's very difficult to follow what they're saying because you can't really trust them. Yeah. You know what they're all about. It's getting money because I'm rich and I'm posh, and rich posh people need money, and they need a lot of it's a bit like when they get themselves involved with charities. You know, they want everyone going around saying, oh, aren't they brilliant, blah 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 blah, and then you find out they've just embezzled all the money.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's the same kind. She's the same kind of person as that. She is. She definitely is. And that's the way I read her.
So she didn't like you.
She's quite pleasant. No, she didn't like me from the point when she found out. Well, he said, look, I think I put it like kind of like, well, don't worry about money and stuff like that. I said I didn't do it for money. I lived around the corner. I wasn't working. I just know it was interested. Well, why not? You know, why not? Why not go around and have a little look? You might as well do it. You can help someone out. Not a big deal. But with this particular thing, you know, and of course the thing is, you would have effectively acted as an intermediary. Now she had to a point, but she'd done that way, way, way back at the start when nothing had actually happened.
Yeah.
You know, there was no marketable product at the time. Now the thing with John Ainsworth Davis was he was saying that he'd started typing up a few times, and he did have a lot of stuff typed up. You know, but he hadn't. I don't think Greg hadn't received like a paper-based, handwritten account. This was all like John Ainsworth Davis could type stuff, you know. So what she'd actually contributed is not really completely clear. But you know, just Greg had actually done a load of stuff, and also he'd used this package. I forget what it's called, but it's a professional publishing package. So things like, you know, the watermark, as they call it in Microsoft Word. You know, kind of like. So when you're reading through the book, in the top, let's say if you were looking at the right-hand page, at the top right of the page, it would have like in sort of grey as opposed to black, like light grey. It would say like France or Belgium or whatever country he was in, because he wasn't putting lots of explanation in. But you see, there was bits missing from the kind of narrative, but Greg had worked out where. You know, so you could follow if you were flicking through the book where the guy was at the specific time and stuff like this. There's various little hints and tips that Greg had put in without kind of being seen to be intrusively changing the narrative or putting his spin on anything. He was just interpreting it, and little, what do you call them? Little aids for somebody who's reading, just to make it easier. Stuff like that. So he had done a good job of what he'd done. He'd done a good job.
So he edited the book, and he'd done a good job, but he'd added a couple of things in that they didn't like.
Well, they said all at the start, he's not going to write author Lord Chancellor. That's
exactly.
Just ridiculous.
Yeah. So he's not putting Lord Chancellor on the end, and he didn't even put obviously credit John Ainsworth Davis in the book at first, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he did later. I think he did.
Yeah, he did
then,
later.
The point is, he then published it. He published it because I even know the publisher because I even told him what person might be a good person to act. It was someone near where I live, and he got like the first whatever 50 copies of the book printed up, something like that. I think in the end he got something like 350 printed. I forget how many it was, but the person did it for quite a reasonable price, and these are hardback books with kind of like a dust cover on them. And Greg's like arty, like he is good at that type of stuff. And so it looked very professional, and he got that all done. But yeah, he put Lord Chancellor on it. But you see, the thing is with this is I don't really understand. You see, this thing with Greg, you can't really understand why he does certain things because, of course, like I said, this is just preposterous what he's put on the book, and it's got no relevance. Yet he used to link one, if you like, project with another project, which has got absolutely nothing to do with the other project. It just discredits every single thing he does.
Yeah, no, he seems to do that. I mean, even today, he links one thing to another thing to another thing. They're completely disconnected, but it's all to suit this one narrative that he's meant to be king. And it just seems like he's throwing all these different things in to try and blindside people to create this one big story.
He's got this facial hair now. He's got like a curly moustache as well.
Yeah.
Like that.
So he had a regal moustache to prove he was king. That did amuse me. So going back to Lawrence de Mello, she didn't particularly like Greg either, did she? You've told me before a story.
To start off with, you've got to remember she's a bullshitter. He's a bullshitter. They get along well to a point.
Yeah.
But yeah, then again, and so they'll placate each other, and they'll I don't know. Again, it's like not something I'm not a bullshitter. I mean, occasionally I'll go on with something for an immediate gain, I suppose. Just because it's easier or something. But these people, that life is based on that.
You told me at one point that wasn't Greg staying there? I don't know for how long. Wasn't he staying with them?
When he was in England, I think it was at some stage, he went to go and stay with one of her friends who she went to stay with, something like that. Yeah, I think it was in England. Yeah, I think it was probably in England.
You told me a story about Greg trying to make a sexual advance towards Lawrence de Mello.
Oh yeah. She said she went up in the morning. Well, his morning, which was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she'd sort of told him to get out of bed. Or maybe it was even 11 o'clock or something. I forget when it was. But the point was, he wouldn't think anything of sleeping in all through the day, which is all right if you're staying around someone's house who just doesn't care. But if you've gone round someone's house and then they've taken you round to their friend's house, and then you're just like a stranger in the house, sleeping through the day, it's not okay, is it? Because
no, absolutely
that person might want to go out. I want to leave you, and you don't know.
It's
rude.
These
are all a load of don't knows, which is why social etiquette dictates that. I mean, fair enough, you might sleep in, but if someone wakes you up and sort of says, "Come on, time to get up now," you missed breakfast, whatever. Have something, and we've got things to do. You can't go around as a visitor and spend your entire time sleeping in bed.
Sure, no, yeah, absolutely, it's rude.
When she went up to wake him up, he was like, "Oh right, oh good, come up for me," sort of thing. And that was his attitude. Basically, he was inviting him into bed.